Morning, everyone. We're going to give folks a couple minutes to join us and we'll get started. Okay, well, in the interest of time, I'll get us going. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our information session with the DC Bar Pro Bono Center. My name is Mara Pagos, and I'm the Economic Development Manager at the Coalition for Nonprofit Housing and Economic Development, CNHED. For those who do not know, CNHED is a membership-based nonprofit that advances equitable community, economic development solutions in the District of Columbia. At CNHED, we help small businesses like you reach their growth potential through policy advocacy, capacity building, and strategic programs, such as our DC Community Anchor Partnership Program, which helps minority-owned businesses gain equitable access to contract opportunities at anchor institutions such as universities, hospitals, and utility companies. In DC, and our Elevate program, which is our executive education program for minority business owners, and several other resources that we have in-house, which you can find at cnhed.org. But today, we will be discussing the DC Bar Pro Bono Center's resources and legal aid with Darryl Maxwell. We will learn more about the pro bono legal help available to DC small businesses and nonprofits, as well as the center's various initiatives, such as their award-winning clinics and projects and resource centers. Before we get started, I'll go over a couple housekeeping items. The webinar is being recorded and will be made available for viewing on the CNHED YouTube page. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to type them in the chat box, which you can find in the Zoom control panel. If I see them, I'll bring them during the presentation, and we'll also have some time at the end of the presentation for questions and answers. You're also welcome to unmute during the group discussion, and we'll let you know when it's time for that. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce Darryl Maxwell. He is the Director of Nonprofit and Small Business Legal Assistance Programs for the DC Bar Pro Bono Center, which is the largest provider of pro bono services and information in the District of Columbia. His focus is on providing pro bono counsel to community-based nonprofits and disadvantaged small businesses. Prior to working with the DC Bar Pro Bono Center, Darryl has several years working in the private practice. Now, without further ado, we'll turn over the time over to Darryl.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, and many thanks to CNHED for giving a little bit of space for the Pro Bono Center and for me to to talk a little bit about it. I'm going to share my screen, and Mara, please let me know if I'm doing this right.
Of course.
I am. I hope I am. Just let me know if you can see everything, and I'm going to make sure I've got a full screen for you.
We're almost at full screen.
Let me get to the slideshow. That look about right?
We are seeing the slides, but I'm not sure if it's in presentation mode yet, at least not on my end.
Okay. So you can see the slides right now. Okay.
Yeah, we can see them. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. So again, thanks, Mara, thanks so much for the invite. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Pro Bono Center. I'm happy as we get started to take any questions, any of your legal questions that aren't super specific related to small business or nonprofit related legal questions. But I will just go through the slides and just sort of give you an idea of what the Pro Bono Center does and how we, one of the things you mentioned, Merab, during your intro about CNHED is that you provide both sort of advocacy, technical assistance, and capacity building. And that's one of the things that we at the Pro Bono Center sort of pride ourselves on as we support businesses, is being sort of a capacity builder and hopefully, a provider of sort of best practice as well as legal advice and consultation and information. Our program, our program related to both nonprofits and small businesses started in 1999. Next year will be our 25th anniversary. The small business program started in 2006. We support business owners here in the district, and essentially we support business owners and nonprofits sort of in the region. We're the only program of our type, probably between between here and Baltimore and between here and Richmond, Virginia. And so we do have a tendency to get business owners that operate in a couple of different, that might operate in multiple jurisdictions. We provide that support in a couple of different ways: training and education, ongoing support and legal assistance, and our clinical program, which Merab referenced earlier. And so I'm going to sort of try to hit on a bunch of these different things that we do. Again, Merab, if you have a question, feel free to sort of jump in and stop me, or if there's anything in particular you want me to clarify. But I will sort of, sure. I will certainly talk about each of these different things.
And Darryl, if you're clicking through your slides, we haven't seen it yet. It's still sitting on the first page, so I'm not sure if our slides are thinking in.
All right, I'm going to try. See, this is all right. I'm going to, because on my screen it looks like I'm sharing, but it doesn't on yours. All right.
I'm happy to share the slides if that's easier.
Why don't you, if you don't mind, I'm going to stop share, and if you wouldn't mind sharing, just so I always feel like a Luddite when it comes to technical things. So let me make sure if I'm not doing it right. I can see this perfectly fine. So if you guys weren't seeing it, then okay, perfect. So why don't we go to the next slide?
Sure.
Awesome. So again, like I said, we've got our small business brief advice legal clinic, which is probably how we're sort of best known. Our subject matter focused brief advice legal clinics, as well as office hours, is what I'm going to get into first. We can move to the next slide. So our small business brief advice legal clinic, it was designed as fairly low barrier of assistance and low barrier to entry. For any of you who may have been familiar with the Pro Bono Center, in particular our small business clinics, before the pandemic, we used to do them on a monthly basis. They were walk-in, and what I find is so extraordinary about our clinics, and yes, I've been at the Pro Bono Center for almost 15 years, so it's really special, important to me. But what I believe it does is it gives a great opportunity for folks in the community to ask all the critical questions about your business with volunteer lawyers from big law firms in the city, from government agencies, from smaller firms, from all walks of life. There are lots of lawyers here in DC, and we have a great sort of panel of volunteers with expertise in real estate, contracts, and employment law and intellectual property. And so the consultations, particularly when we did them in person, we had a rotating clinic. And so we would partner with other nonprofits, small business technical assistance providers, government agencies, and community centers, and we would try our best to hit all 8 wards. If we did 10 or 11 clinics a year, we try to hit all 8 wards every single year. We would partner with Gallaudet to provide resources to business owners that were deaf. We work with the Office on Latino Affairs, the Latino Economic Development Center, and others to provide small business clinics in Spanish. And again, for for folks who are, for all the folks on the call, there'd be, any number of questions. I'd say the most common topics we'd have. I have a contract, I need somebody to help me review it. I'm trying to sort of create a contract for a service. I've been doing my best to find resources online, but I need to make sure this is correct. Can you sort of review it? I have a lease. I would like to sign it. And I'm not sure if this is if this is going to put me in the best position to succeed, or it's going to put me in a really strong position to fail. Or, and this would happen occasionally, I already signed this lease and I don't know if I'm in a really bad spot. Can you explain it to me? Or, they want to, you want to protect your name, you want to protect a logo that you might have. Additionally, I'm really small. I want to bring on somebody to help me. I don't know how to classify them as an employee or a contractor. What should I do? Those are the types of questions, and then tons of other questions that we could possibly get. So you'd be able to ask those questions. Consultations would typically take anywhere between 30 to 40 minutes and an hour, or longer, depending upon the size of your contract review, or the amount. Some folks had fairly in-depth questions, and so but as a service to our community, we would typically serve at our clinics somewhere in the area of between 500 and 600 clients per year, and those numbers will typically grow, have been growing over the years as more folks learned about us. So getting an opportunity to partner with CNHED to provide sort of more information that this resource is available certainly makes me really happy. And we've worked with CNHED for a long time. So this is a great opportunity to sort of share a little bit more about this information. We have now, since the pandemic, we've had virtual clinics, and we've just recently, in the last couple of months, moved back into a rotation of virtual clinics and in-person clinics. And you will see in the bottom of the screen our resource site, which is www.lawhelp.org/DC/NPSB, which is where you can find all of our resources and information and our upcoming training opportunities, clinic opportunities as well. So if you think you need to talk to a lawyer, if you're unclear, if you're looking for resources to be able to sort of get some questions answered, like, I think I want to bring on an independent contractor, or maybe I want to bring on an employee. How do I differentiate? We have resources like that you can sort of take a look at. So that's where I would direct you. We can move to the next slide. Okay, so in addition to our small business clinics, which happen at least once a month, we have subject matter specific clinics, and you'll see a picture of me with my arms folded, and a couple of my teammates. I will address them, who are the lifeblood of our program and our organization. I'll address them sort of later in the presentation, but typically we focus at our subject matter specific brief advice clinics to address like a particular issue. I've mentioned already a couple of times hiring and onboarding employees. For a lot of smaller businesses as well as nonprofits, going from 0 employees to 1 employee to 3 employees, or I should call them workers, depending upon how you're going to, categorize them, is a really difficult decision, depending upon how much money you have coming in, depending upon what you're trying to accomplish. And you always want to make sure you're doing that right, because if you don't, that is where DC's Department of Employment Services and the U.S. Department of Labor will have questions about that. So that's an instance where we provide that. Up until this year, we had done that once a year. We're moving to do that twice a year, as we've noticed interest in that. those types of clinics have grown. We do an intellectual property specific clinic for both for businesses and for nonprofits as well. Also, if for any of you who might be new businesses or nonprofits or startup businesses or nonprofits, we have a startup specific clinic that we're going to do twice a year this year, where we focus on sort of trying to understand the nuances of startups and just to give folks a sense for, you know, where they might be leaning, whether or not, you know, one of the things that we as lawyers working with businesses always want to advise our clients is whether or not starting the business right now makes sense, whether or not the business that you're considering starting is going to be not necessarily viable, but whether or not you're in the best position for it to succeed right now. If you might need a little bit of time to incubate, you know, there are lots of technical assistance providers that CNHED is familiar with and works with too, like the Women's Business Center and the Small Business Development Centers that can help you sort of with the numbers. That's not for us to decide, but from a legal perspective, whether or not there might be a little bit more of a deep dive that founder or the folks who are starting the business might need to do before getting started. And we try to give folks who are at the startup phase as much information as they can to make a reasonable decision moving forward. We can move to the next slide, please. Okay, so another thing we provide, you know, one of the things that we try to do at the Pro Bono Center is to give business owners and nonprofits as many opportunities as we can to get in touch with us. We work with DC's Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection to provide office hours once a month. We do quarterly office hours with the Washington Area Community Investment Fund's Enterprising Women of Color cohort, as well as we work with DC Small Local Business Development, DC's Department, excuse me, of Small Local Business Development to provide office hours so that we are able to touch a couple different points, both sort of in between when our clinics happen and to try to catch as many of the entrepreneur community as we can. You know, part of the work that we do at the Pro Bono Center requires collaboration with folks like CNHED and other technical assistance providers. And, you know, in order to do that well, those partnerships need to be strong. We can move to the next slide, please. And we can go to the next one. So our training and education modules, what we've tried to sort of build at our resource site, which is called Law Help, which I made a reference to earlier, is to provide evergreen topics of interest to the small business community. You know, I'll just here lays out a couple of the most recent trainings that we've done. We did a whole training on employment best practices, legal compliance and best practices, and sort of how we make those decisions are based on questions from you, questions from the clients that we have on a regular basis, needs that we have a tendency to address during our clinics, during our office hours. And then we regularly poll our client population after clinics, after webinars, to get a sense for what they need, maybe where they see resources that might be lacking. We also follow changes in the law here in DC and at the federal level to get a sense for sort of where new things might be happening so that we can get ahead of the curve. One of the things that at the Pro Bono Center, we want to be, we want to be a place where we are ahead of the discourse and where we can provide sort of a great sort of wealth of information to our clients. Oftentimes we get phone calls, we get emails, both with really sort of with questions we haven't contemplated, but for the most part, we get a lot of questions on topics that we tend to see fairly often. And our resource site at Law Help is a place where we can direct folks to say, oh, you're looking to start a business, you're interested in sort of what is an operating agreement, and maybe sort of how do I create one? We've got resources for you to look at, for you to review, webinars for you to watch, so that'll sort of put you in a really great position. It helps us to provide this information both, we provide this information both through the expertise on our staff, as well as our volunteer lawyers from firms and from the government who can provide, who can utilize their expertise, working with Fortune 500 clients to distill that for the needs of our small business community here in DC. And that's a place where we can direct so many of the questions that we get, which help us sort of, again, create new resources and more information for our client community. We'll move to the next slide, please. We also partner with, we work with partner organizations to provide trainings, much like the ones you see here. And I am certain, we've talked with CNHED in the past and other resources to figure out if there's a group of business owners that need specific training or education sort of product that we either have or can put together. We are always happy to work with our partners, to meet the needs of their client communities, particularly where there might be a little bit different than ours, or there might be specific groups like childcare centers, restaurants, and organization or groups like that. We can move to the next slide, please. So one of the things that we developed, this is probably, probably going back about 13 or 14 years. While we've done, I've talked a lot about our clinics, I've talked a lot about our trainings, but one of the things that we started to notice was our small business population didn't have, for the most part, didn't have sort of a baseline acumen for the areas of business law that they would need, that would be really helpful in both developing their businesses and running their day-to-day operation. And so we built out, again, based on small business client input, changes in the law, and just sort of what we were seeing regularly, we provide on a fairly regular basis, in addition to the webinars that I mentioned, we do two trainings for businesses, for small businesses specifically every year. We do an 8-part training where we bring in expertise in accounting and fiscal controls, intellectual property, contract law, employment law, government contracting. That series actually developed as a series for contractors and construction companies. We had partnered with the Anacostia Economic Development Center, who had a cohort of small construction companies that I believe, God, this is probably dating back to 2008 or 9, right when I started the Pro Bono Center. But we started this 8-part series to meet a need for construction companies who at the time were getting federal money. I think this was money that was related to the financial crisis back in 2008 and 2009. And so all of the businesses that were coming to us with legal questions, we wanted to give them both an outlet to get some of this baseline support and understanding of these legal topics, but then also gave them an opportunity to sort of meet as a cohort, to meet together, to work together, to ask each other questions, to network. And we've seen all these years that we've been doing this program, joint ventures put together through collaboration. A lot of businesses grow and change, work with each other, contract with each other. And so it's a program that has grown. We've been doing it. We've done it in person. We've done it virtually. And it continues to be one of our most successful trainings. Additionally, we do a 4-part employment law training, partnering with DSLBD, the SBDC, the Washington Area Community Investment Fund, and a law firm, Crowell and Mooring. Employment law, again, you've heard me mention it a few times. It is one of the areas where small businesses get into a lot of trouble and make assumptions about how little the law may apply to them because they're so small, which, quite frankly, is untrue. And so we try to give our client population the most information that we can. And during those, we do 4 weeks of 2-hour, hour and a half of 2-hour trainings. And the folks who take the course say always say it's never enough, and that we could do it, we could do it so many more times and there would still be a ton of people who'd be interested in it. And again, these are trainings that we run once to twice a year. And, we think it's really helpful and beneficial for our client population. We can move to the next slide, please. Okay, so I mentioned Law Help. This is just sort of a little bit of a representation of what's on Law Help and what you might see on the Law Help page. Webinars, written materials on all these different areas. And then sort of what's really helpful is to understand when our upcoming clinics are and when our upcoming training and webinars are. So if you can, I would bookmark that lawhelp.org/DC/NPSB page. And if there are any additional, so I just saw, as it popped up on my screen, I just saw a question about when is the next training. So we will likely do our 8-part series for businesses sometime in the fall. And we usually do our 4-part series sometime in the spring. I don't have specific dates as I think we're still sort of right towards the end of June. We probably won't know until after the summer the exact dates, but you can certainly keep an eye out for that on that Law Help page as we move through the summer. But yeah, Law Help's got a really great sort of wealth of information, so I would direct you to that. We can move to the next slide, please. Okay, so you've already seen me. I'm just going to point you in the direction of my colleagues. For those of you who are small businesses, you will see to my right in the picture is my colleague Jason Q, who's our senior managing attorney, who focuses mainly with our nonprofit community. Christine Kulamani, seated right, sort of, I guess that's to my right in the picture, or as I'm looking to my left, with the glasses, who manages our small business clinics and is primarily responsible for our small business legal assistance program. Marcia Boyd in the middle, who is our administrative assistant and who has worked at the Pro Bono Center for longer, probably about 10 years longer than I have, and Lauren Paley, who is our associate manager. And for many of you, probably one of the first contacts you'll have with the Pro Bono Center, and who you might hear from if you're not hearing from me or Christine. So wanted to give some shine to my colleagues who make all of this really, who sort of make this program sing and available to all of you guys. We can move to the last slide here, which I think just has, ask for questions and has my contact info as you need it. I will say, just lastly on the Pro Bono Center, we've been around for about 25 years next year, and our hope is to continue to grow and to support the local small business community here in the District of Columbia, and happy to take any questions that you have.
All right, thanks, Darryl. Sorry, I'm having trouble navigating my Zoom platform. With that being said, yes, I think we're open for questions. And as soon as I can pull up my Zoom platform, I can open those questions. All right, Darryl, if you see any, you can go ahead and start answering. For some
Sure.
reason,
Yeah, and I do see some. So let's see. One of the first question I see is, how long does it take to get an attorney to review a contract? It's a great question. If you have a contract and we have a clinic coming up, you can bring the contract with you, and on the date of the clinic, you'll be able to have somebody take a look at that. So that's typically how we would direct you to come in on the day of the clinic, bring your contract, we review it, make comments and notes for you, or you can take your own notes. Typically, from time to time, folks will email us and say, I have a contract, I need you to review it today because I need to submit it to somebody tomorrow. While we would love to take all of your requests, that would not make us sort of an effective. We wouldn't be able to meet all of our client needs effectively if we did that. That's why we direct folks either to our office hours offerings or to our clinics to bring, whether it's a contract, a lease, or your questions. Now, if you have something that might be a little bit more pressing or urgent, for example, if you're looking for assistance because you have a court date coming up or something else that might be sort of pressing time-wise, that might be an instance where you reach out and we can let you know if that's something that we can provide, or you can look to see when our upcoming dates are for our upcoming clinics to get a sense for what the timing turnaround is going to be. If you're somewhere in between clinics, that can take an additional amount of time. So that's just for you to know, we try not to take on sort of ad hoc contract review in between clinics and things like that. We try our best to provide enough opportunities for you to access the free sort of legal assistance and resources that we provide, but we can't take everybody sort of when they need them immediately.
Great, thanks, Darryl. And I have everything set up now, so I'm here. I think it'd be great to kind of provide some examples or some common challenges that businesses face. I think I'm curious to know, what are some of the common challenges, or what have you seen with businesses that have employees?
Ooh, okay. Yes. So yeah, there are lots of really common challenges. So I'll start with the common employee challenge. One of the things I've learned over the years working with businesses is that typically it doesn't matter if you work in a business that has 100 employees or 3 employees. If you are the manager or owner of the business and you get crosswise with another worker, you want that person out of your office yesterday, not today, yesterday, if things go crosswise. And generally when people, and particularly in smaller businesses, and I'll just say for the purposes of this sort of conversation, 10 employees or less, or 5 employees or less, you're either in tight sort of quarters or you're working really closely with somebody else. And so when you feel like it's time for, whenever there's a separation, whether you're firing somebody or whether you have to lay them off, for example, but typically if you're hot firing someone, one of the things, or it might just be that there was an understanding that you had about the term for which they were going to work with you, and that term has come to an end. One of the things that you want to make sure that you have right is what distinction or what classification that worker is. If they're an independent contractor, you can separate them from the organization sort of at any time, and generally employees are here at DC are also at-will workers, just like independent contractors are. But here's the problem. Here's the most common problem that you get. Somebody who you've hired and maybe works their own schedule. There's a whole sort of legal framework for how you determine somebody's an independent contractor versus an employee. But for someone who is in your employ, for the length of time they've been working with you, you have thought and you sort of consider them an independent contractor, and you treat them as such. But they consider themselves an employee. And all of a sudden, when there is a separation, that worker then says, oh, well, you never paid me overtime. You never paid out my vacation. You owe me X, back pay. And if you, as the employer, aren't keeping the proper records, haven't classified them the correct way, haven't properly papered this worker, and maybe they've kept records, which I've seen happen a ton of times, you can be responsible for back pay and damages if they were to bring a case against you. So these are the types of things, and again, I mentioned during the presentation that the reason we started to do employee hiring and onboarding as a training and a clinic was so that we could give some of that information to the small business community. But that happens more than you'd expect, and it's not just small businesses. Google, I remember, I think this is public now, so I believe it was Google that had hired hundreds of folks that they considered independent contractors. Some of those independent contractors got together and sued Google and said, no, you didn't meet the test for us being independent contractors. We were employees, and they had to pay back pay in the millions of dollars. Hopefully you're not going to be stuck with having to pay back millions of dollars, but it's certainly something to consider. I'll take your question, Marib, and I just had another idea about one of the things that we get so many issues or questions about. And I think I mentioned this during a bit of the presentation in the beginning, but particularly at our small business clinics, we will get both the folks who have, they're looking to move into a space and they get a lease and they're ready to sign it right now. And they're like, oh, I just want a lawyer to look over it. But they've been sold that this is the perfect space for what they need. Doesn't matter if it's a consulting business or a coffee shop, or it doesn't matter. And particularly in real estate and commercial real estate, it's that time is of the essence. You've been told this place is going to go away if you don't sign this quickly. My thought is always, if the space is so hot that it's going to go away and it doesn't give you enough time to adequately prepare, to speak with counsel or to have time to review the lease so that you understand it, then it's not for you. Then you shouldn't take it. Whenever you have to sign your name or on behalf of your business, You want to make sure that all your facts are correct and that you understand what you're signing. I could ask everybody who's listening right now and everybody who will be listening, how many of you read every line of when you're, if you have an iPhone and there's a terms and conditions section, when you're updating your iPhone, do you read every line? Most people don't. They sort of suspect that. They want to make sure you've at least scrolled through it, and then you click yes, update. I'm one of these nerds who reads every line. Not because I think they're trying to trick me, but because it's that one time you don't read every line that you may possibly get into trouble. Now, for terms and conditions, it's not a huge deal, but I've seen people read leases and contracts the exact same way. They don't read them, or they only think about the term, like the amount of time that you're going to either be in a space if it's a lease, the amount of time the contractor is going to run for a contract for services, and maybe how much the rent is or how much the costs are. But they don't look at the fine print. They might not look at a couple. I won't bore you with all the provisions that folks skip. But the point is, we provide this service, and we are here as volunteer lawyers to help you, so that look, some people are paperwork phobic. I understand. I totally understand that. But we are here for you to avail yourselves of the nerdy nature of lawyers to try to put you in a better position. And particularly as it relates to anything you're signing your name to, you want to make sure you've had a thorough review. And if your eyes aren't a thorough enough review, having experts and having folks with a little bit of expertise, I think hopefully will give you a little bit of peace of mind when you have to sign something.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And kind of, I guess, staying in the leasing and, I guess, space arena, we have a question from Andrea, who asks, do you have expertise in acquiring real estate, land, specifically land trusts?
That's a great question. I don't have a good answer because we don't. I know on staff we don't have expertise, but that's the type of thing where particularly if we know, so particularly during our virtual clinics, we will have folks pre-register and let us know what their issues are. And if we have expertise, we will make sure to pair that expertise with client needs. I mean, most of our real estate lawyer attorney volunteers that we have can answer some of those land trust questions and those land acquisition questions. Some might be, and I am comfortable saying we don't have expertise in every area of civil legal services. If we did, that would be fantastic, and there are enough lawyers in DC to be able to sort of meet those needs, but we don't always have all of the answers, all of your civil legal answer needs. But in the event that we don't have them, we will, and we've had this happen before, where we've had folks come into the clinic and have a very specific sort of niche area of the law that they need assistance with. We can always put out a call to our volunteers to see if folks can answer those kinds of questions. My advice is always, as I've already mentioned, come into the clinic, meet with an attorney. If you need additional assistance or more specialized assistance, we can work with you to try to find that.
Great, wonderful. Again, I'm just going to encourage everyone, if you have any questions for Darryl, please feel free to drop them in the chat box, or also feel free to unmute yourself if you want to ask him directly. We heard a bit about some of the challenges that businesses with employees face. How about businesses that are just starting out, businesses who are startups and are just beginning their business? Are their challenges different?
Yes and no. I mean, I think a lot of times business owners, when they're getting started, their issues are typically related to understanding either understanding the industry that they're in, and what competition looks like. Again, some of these aren't legal stumbles. Some of them are more understanding the industry. There are some questions where you have a business owner that is sort of either looking at this business as a side project that hasn't had the time to sort of invest enough time, which is totally reasonable. Lots of businesses start this way. But the difficulty in the beginning is starting the business, doing the paperwork, not really understanding what they're filling out in the beginning, can make for sort of painful conversations after the fact. So I'll give you probably a few examples. The first example, folks will jump in sort of feet first. And what I mean by that is they'll say, okay, I want to name my business, I'll use, Three Pigs Catering, because they make a really great pork sandwich. And maybe they take a look and they look to see, is Three Pigs Catering available? Maybe it is in the District of Columbia. And they register as a limited liability company or corporation or some other business entity. And then, they get a notice 6 months later after they've found a space to operate the catering company from, and they start to get some clients, start doing a little bit of business, and then they find out, there's another company with a similar name to Three Pigs Catering. Maybe it's Three Pigs Catering, but the Three Pigs is in Spanish. And the other company is making a claim that, and also envision, again, this is an actual case that I worked on. So, but also imagine Three Pigs Catering decided, all right, we're going to print some flyers. We have a space. We got a sign and a good deal that we could put in the window. We have a website. And then you get a cease and desist letter, typically from this other company that's been around for 3 or 4 years. And this new catering company realizes, I have to change my name. I mean, they can fight this fight, or I'm going to have to change my name. I'm going to have to change my signs. I'm going to have to change my website. And I finally, I've gotten good Instagram buzz and otherwise, and now I have to change everything. So they jumped in feet first, which is not necessarily always a bad thing. But the difficulty is when you do that sometimes, you're not in the best position to then move forward, or you run into sort of problems like this. Again, this happens fairly commonly, and again, this is going to happen even if this is a business that you run by yourself. The difficulty is just not sort of dotting all your I's, dotting your I's, crossing your T's, as it were. There are other sorts of things. I'll give you another sort of a real estate example. You sign a lease, and this I've seen a lot, actually. You sign a lease, you're operating, I'll use another restaurant example, but you're operating sort of on the first floor of a 3-level building. And you realize what you might have missed in your lease is that you're responsible for more than your square footage worth of the rent, or you're responsible for taxes, or you're responsible for some other provision that you just didn't realize. This is another thing. This is another sort of reason to scrutinize your lease so strongly. Or there are some leases that might say, you lease the space as is. Your landlord is not responsible for trash, or is not responsible for common areas, things like that. And so the challenge is, like, anybody who lives in who has ever lived in an apartment building makes an assumption that that they don't live, hopefully, that their apartment isn't infested with rodents. You also make an assumption that there isn't like anything sort of nefarious happening in the walkway from the street for you to get to your apartment, and that it's the landlord's responsibility to take care of anything happening in your walkway, in your hallways. In a commercial lease, you don't have those protections. And for a lot of folks, they assume, because if they've lived in an apartment, that a landlord is responsible for taking care of that. And in some leases, it says that they do. And in other leases, it says that they don't. And a landlord is always going to try to give themselves as few responsibilities as they can give themselves. And thusly, that's why you want to make sure to read and scrutinize that lease. And again, because those were things that I didn't know until I went to law school and had to learn them, but also until I started to start reviewing leases and talking to experts and realizing, oh, you have to make sure to keep an eye out for these provisions. There's a reason why they're in the leases in the first place. But again, I can't stress enough, it's really easy to get caught up in this place looks fantastic, it's going to be perfect. Working with entrepreneurs, we all have visions for this thing we're looking to create. And particularly for a restaurateur or a clothing store or something to that effect, where there's a certain amount of sort of artistry and vision that you have in terms of what your space is going to look like. But you have to think about and can be concerned with the details. And the difficulty is that when you're thinking sort of mission program forward and you're not thinking about those details, that can get you into trouble.
Great, all great insights. Well, after hearing all these great services that's provided at the Pro Bono Center, I'm sure many folks in the audience wants to know, when is the next clinic?
That's a great question. And the answer is, actually, there's a walk-in clinic on Thursday. This Thursday at the DC Women's Business Center. It starts at 5 o'clock. You can find more information on our Law Help site. I just happened to, I should have anticipated that you were going to ask me this, but yes, I know it starts at 5 and it goes till about 7:30 or so. You don't have to pre-register. You can go to the Women's Business Center and sign up.
Wonderful.
But yeah, again, more information. You can find more information on our Law Help site, which I've referenced way more times than I need to on this.
No, this is a great plug. Okay, well, wonderful, Darryl. It looks like we covered all the bases. Is there anything you wanted to mention before we wrapped up?
I'll just say that particularly for folks who are starting a business or running a business, particularly for those of you who are running businesses on your own, it can be a really difficult and sort of lonely endeavor when you're running it on your own. We at the Pro Bono Center just want to be sort of a helpful component to put you in the best spot to succeed. We've had business owners who have been coming to us with questions, seeking advice, seeking counsel over sort of a good portion of the time that I've been with the Pro Bono Center, so for over a decade. But and for a lot of the business owners here in DC, they feel comfortable not having to hire an attorney when they've got a couple of questions. They know that our clinics and our services, they're familiar with our clinics and our services, and they know that when they need access to quality legal assistance, they can get that, and they can they don't have to factor that into additional expenses, and they can focus like a laser on the business of making sure their business is in the is in the black and is succeeding. So we love to be additive and to be a support to business owners in DC.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much, Darryl, for joining us and providing, such a wonderful, informative presentation and taking the audience's questions. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. And I guess we'll see you all next time around.
Thanks,
All right,
everybody.
bye, guys.